Hello and welcome to Rise Above Defeat interview. We are interviewing Sophia Ba today, and we're going to go through and we're going to hear her story and we're going to learn a little bit about her. And I'll also introduce Markia, our CEO and owner, operator of Rise Above Defeat, Help Revive a Teen. So we are out trying to find stories of people who have been affected through the traumas in life and what they've gone through and their successful recovery stories and how they've come out of that trauma. Like I said, today we have Sophia Ba, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and give us a little bit about her. Go ahead, Sophia. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. I appreciate you guys asking me to do this. It is an honor and a pleasure. I am Sophia Williams Ball, as previously stated. I am a mother of five, a former foster youth, a former adoptee, a survivor, a warrior, and an overcomer. I am going on 36 years of age. I aged out of the foster care system at the age of 18. And since then, I have pretty much been on my own and doing my own thing and just rising above the statistics and the stereotypes that was placed against me as being a former foster youth and a former adoptee and surviving child abuse and sexual abuse, etc. And it is a pleasure to share my story today with you guys.
Awesome. Well, we are so glad to have you. Markia, do you want to say anything before we get going?
Yes, I just want to again thank you for agreeing to come on and share your story. We just want to give you the floor to share more about. I read I believe it's a short story that you had listed on your site. It was Mommy's Dearest.
Oh, yes.
That um that's what really drew me to you. I was like, wow, because you expressed something in there that I could never put my finger on, and it was about your voice. Like the things you went through, kind of like um,
Yeah.
muffled your voice. Can you tell us about your story too? But I would love if you can share more of your short story. I learned so
Sure.
much just from that.
Aw, thank you. I'm glad that you like the story. It really just came to me because I had got my records to find my biological mom when I was about 21. Or no, not 21. I'd say I was about 19. I found her at 21. And when I got those records, I was still young and I kind of just scanned them, just looking for pertinent information to connect to the biological family. But I lost those records. I have a bad habit of moving from place to place. It probably stems from moving place to place as a child, in the system or whatnot. So I reapplied to receive that file again, but this time at an older age with older children and more children. Reading it this time around really did something to me. Like I actually paid attention to what I read. I actually understood, comprehended, and accepted what I was reading, which is where Mommy Dearest came from. And Mommy Dearest was really just talking about the effects of my biological mom and my adult life based on the things that were said and did to me as a child that I was not necessarily unaware of, but did not remember because it was at such an early age.
Mm.
And so I've always questioned, it was really just me venting about how the things that were said to me as a child and done to me as a child has affected me as an adult. And what I mean by that is I always felt that I wasn't that pretty or that I wasn't worthy or that people didn't really love me or like me like that. Like I've never really truly felt loved by anybody. I felt tolerated um, and accepted to a certain extent, but never really loved. And so when I read those records and saw that my biological mom, was calling me demons and saying I was a dark, ugly child, and I guess I actually even sung a song about being dark and ugly to a therapist when I was a child, it just really hit me like, wow, I really had a mom that did not want me, that really felt bad things about me. And it kind of broke me the day that I wrote that. Like it really hurt my feelings to a certain extent. Even though as an adult, she still talks to me like that. And she just recently, a few weeks ago, called me a demon as well and told me she'd stump me on live TV. So it's not something that was new to me necessarily, but reading it and knowing that that type of thing was said to me and done to me as a child, and meanwhile she was sexually abusing me and physically abusing me as well, is just like, wow. Like, how could you treat your own kid like that? Like, how do you feel that way about something that you produced? So Mommy Dearest was really me just getting it out there that I am learning and growing and finding my own voice and my own way to unbreak that generational trauma that she tried to bestow upon me. So when I speak to my daughter or when I look at my daughter, I always tell her how beautiful she is. If she's going to bed at night, I'm like, good night, pretty girl. She comes in the room with her hair down. I'm like, oh my God, you are just so pretty. My goodness, you so pretty, girl. How you feel about being so beautiful? Like I try to feed that love into her that should have been fed into me, because I never want my daughter to feel like she doesn't deserve love or she doesn't deserve to be seen, because most of my life I have hid, because I've always felt like I said nobody ever really liked me. So that caused me to be an introvert. It caused me to be a hermit. And then to have my biological mom treat me that way, and then to be adopted and have my adoptive mom treat me the worst out of all of the 5 kids she adopted, it just really made me think like there is literally something wrong with me. Like there's something wrong with me. No mom has ever loved me. No mom has ever taken their time or truly tried to show me what love should feel like. Um, so Mommy Dearest was really just an expression of breaking free of that mental prison that my biological mom put me in with the words that she whispered into my ear as a child. And the fact that at this big age, I am just now learning how to release that pain and trying to make sure that I don't continue to live my life in a prison I don't deserve to be in.
Exactly. And when, Sophia, when about did this stuff happen? Did this stuff happen from like infancy, or
It did.
when did
It
it
started from infancy. I was taken from my biological mom at 3. And at 3, when I entered the system, they said that out of me and my 2 other biological siblings, I was the most malnourished, the most physically abused, and the most sexually abused. And that there was a huge difference in the way that my biological mom reacted to and treated me, in opposition to the 2 other siblings at the visits. I was being pinched, or she would tell them to, get me away from her because I was her dark demon child and she didn't want me near her. And she would hug and love on my brother and my sister, but they said she barely wanted to touch me. And at first, when I read this stuff, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay. Maybe they were exaggerating, but I actually have a picture in my phone, and you can tell that my bio mom does not want to be bothered with me, because my sister has a picture with my bio mom where my bio mom is smiling and hugging her. But on my picture, she has her arm like this away from me as I'm trying to hug her with my 2 sons in my arms.
wow.
So she definitely has an issue with me. Nobody
So
knows what it is.
hmm. Are you the
So
oldest in the family?
I am the second oldest. I am the oldest girl.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so
So you moved
that's
on.
that.
So at age 3, you moved on to foster care. And
Correct.
when you're, I don't know how far you can remember back, but in foster care, what was going on there? Were you said there were other siblings? Were you the oldest? Were you the youngest? In between? And how
Well,
did things start to develop?
when I went to foster care, it was just me and my brother. My brother is the oldest. The baby, which was the second child I was referencing as to my mom showing the most affection to between her and my brother, she actually went to a separate home because she was going to be adopted out. And me and my brother, we were 3 and 4, so they placed us in a foster home together. Unfortunately, that was a horrible experience. A lot of molestation, sexual assaults, a lot of abuse. I remember one of my very vivid memories was sitting in the kitchen and spilling some spaghetti on the floor. And the foster mom made me lick it and eat it up off the floor because I made a mess and she had just mopped her floor earlier that day. So that was a huge issue for her. Um, I remember my teeth being knocked out by her sister, Pumpkin. My 2 front teeth were loose. Instead of just letting them fall out, the traditional way or using the floss or whatever, being a big bully, she punched them out. I just remember crying most nights, just laying in the bed crying and having nightmares and seeing images going across my window in my bedroom, um, being humped on by some of the older boys in the foster home, provocatively danced on. And unfortunately, even though I showed extreme signs of sexual abuse in the therapy that they had me in as a child, coming from my bio mom, they just referenced all of that to her. And it was actually going on in the home. And they left me in that home for 3 years until I was adopted out at 6. So for 3 years, my brother was also being sexually abused by those foster boys. Um, and then I was being sexually abused by the foster boys as well and acting out sexually. They say in the records that the therapist said I always talked about food. I guess talking about food or hoarding food is a sign of sexual abuse. But like I said, they just assumed that all of this stemmed from my bio mom and an uncle that they said was molesting me. And it actually wasn't just them that it was coming from, it was coming from the home. But they didn't investigate it. So
Wow. So when all of that went down, reports are being made, you were adopted out after 3 years. Where did you go then?
I was moved from Detroit, Michigan to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Supposedly, I was adopted by a good, faithful Christian woman, church mother, every Sunday, Sunday school, all of that. And for 7 years, those were the worst 7 years of my entire life. I could tell that it was going to be bad after one of the overnight visits they let us do. I guess I peed the bed and I didn't know. And she asked me about it the next morning. I had no clue. And she basically called me a liar and told me we don't lie in this house. But the look in her eyes and the tone in her voice scared me. And I just knew like it was about to be a bad life. So I spent 7 years isolated inside of a house where I was beat almost daily, made to stand in front of my bedroom door or in front of her bedroom door with my hands on my head for hours, or 1 foot up for hours, or my arms stretched out for hours. I was starved a lot. If I was fed, most of the time it was cold, clammy oatmeal that she would cook, plain, set in a freezer, then take out, let it thaw, and sit on the counter, and then make me eat it. If it had throw up in it, I was made to eat it with the throw up. Um, I
Goodness.
drank a lot of my water from the sink, but once she realized she could hear the sink running, I was beat for that. So then I began to drink my water out of a toilet bowl. A lot of weekends, she would go out to eat at a buffet called Old Country Buffet. But me and the other adopted siblings, we all experienced this. It was five of us that were adopted, me and my brother, and then a set of three siblings. So we all lived this life. I got it the worst for some reason. I was the most abused and I was on punishment pretty much more than anyone else. But she'd go to Old Country Buffet and leave us in the van for like 2 hours while she ate inside the building. She'd go to like Aldi's and buy bread and like lunch meat and just tell us to make ourselves a dry sandwich. And it'd be like 80 degrees outside. So we'd be pretty hot. I'd get nosebleeds. If I got blood on my clothes, I'd get beat for that. I spent a lot of years standing in a dark attic by myself, scared because she knew I was scared of the dark. If she saw that I moved out of the spot, I'd get dragged down the stairs by my hair and beat. Um, it was a rough life. And for many years, we used to have to get on our hands and knees for hours at a time and pray out loud the same prayer over and over because she was trying to make us catch the Holy Ghost or just be better people. During her phase of trying to make us catch the Holy Ghost, I faked it because my stomach hurt it from being up high on a dining room chair for hours on end and on the side of my bed, and my knees were aching. So I faked it. And the next morning, I didn't get up speaking tongues. So I was beat really bad for faking the Holy Ghost with extension cords and such, and just whooped on throughout the entire night for that. So yeah, those were years of just being beat, punished, isolated. We weren't really allowed to go outside and play. CPS got involved 3 different times. At one point when they got involved, they made her do like the parenting classes where we had to go to the little in daycare part at the building, and she made us the sugar-free kids because we had issues and all this other crap. So even when we did get out the house, we still was miserable because we still couldn't just be an average kid. There was still that stigma that she was trying to place on us, although a lie. Um,
And I'm
and
sure
yeah,
when
that
CPS got involved and something came out, didn't she make you pay for that?
yeah, she definitely did. And that's
So,
my thing about the system. They call CPS, the schools call CPS, and CPS interviews you right there with the parents in the house,
mm-hmm.
and it's like you can't say anything because I'm going to get beat. So I'm not going to tell you anything because I'd rather not get beat worse than what I'm already expecting, type of
Exactly.
thing. But I was one of the first kids to tell. I was in the 5th grade. They had that, green flag, red flag speaker come in. And I
Mm-hmm.
raised my hand on the red flags because they were mentioning, things that detail child abuse. The
Mm-hmm.
principal called my adopted mom. She came up to the school, told him I was a former foster kid. I was a habitual liar. That's what she called me my entire time with her, a habitual liar. When I got home, I walked through the door. She punched me in the chest, knocked me to the steps, then dragged me up the stairs and beat me and stomped on me. So the next day, I had to go to school and tell them that I lied and that I was a liar. And then they never called CPS. But after that point, when the other siblings were in school and they were going to school with black whelps on the back of their hands because she used to whoop us with plastic spatulas on the back sides of our hands, CPS got involved then. And then another incident where the 2-year-old that was adopted fainted because he had been dehydrated. She had not fed him in a couple of days or given him anything to drink, and made him stand outside on a roof deck in 90 something degree weather. He fainted. They called the police or the paramedics. When they got him to the hospital, he was covered in bruises and malnourished. And that's when they got really involved. And they pretty much stayed on her after that point, but they let us stay with her. So it still did not eliminate, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to move to Kalamazoo, Michigan. They put a hold on it due to the pending investigation. Eventually, they released the hold. They let her move us. And we were there for about a year. My older brother, who got tired of the abuse, ended up running away one night. We woke up, he was gone. About 2 weeks later, we received a voicemail letting them know that they were sending the police and a social worker to remove us from the home. Once we were actually removed from the home and placed in a temporary foster home, that's when I talked to the three younger siblings and said, we got to tell somebody or we're going to have to go back. And at that point, we all decided we were going to tell everything. And we eventually got the adoption terminated, and we were given, well, I was given my last name back, me and my brother. And we all went into the system, and yeah.
So that was my next question. Age 3, go to her, with her 7 years. So you're about age 10 when all this went down, or were you a little older?
No, I was in foster care from 3 to 6. I was adopted from 6 to 13 and a half.
6 to 13 and a
So
half.
I
Okay.
went back into, yeah, foster care. I believe it was about 3 weeks or a month before my 14th birthday.
Wow. Then what happened? You're in 14. What's going on in your life now? You're on mute.
Oh,
Oop.
sorry about that. The
Okay.
lady was really sweet. I went into the foster home at 14, me and the three younger siblings. My brother Pierre was already back in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Um, it went okay. I had never been allowed to like have fun or enjoy childhood, so I wasn't really sure what to do. The foster mom had to pretty much keep talking us out the house to tell us to get out and play and that it was normal to be outside and play. So once I started going outside, I was always outside. And that's when I started being called fast. And I'm pretty sure Markia knows where that stems from.
Mhm.
Um, it's a terrible thing. It's something that young Black girls are called very often by older Black females in the community.
Yeah.
And because I was outside all the time, I was considered to be trying to get male attention. Now, mind you, I was playing with boys in the neighborhood. I was having fun. I'd never really been outside like that. There wasn't a lot of girls in the neighborhood. The few girls that they were overly developed. And they were the ones that knew all the boys, you know. So my foster mom started calling me fast. One time I sprained my ankle. She told me I wouldn't have sprained it if I wasn't outside being fast, chasing after a boy. And when her son and his cousin sexually assaulted me, I didn't tell her because I was fast. You know, I deserved it. It was me, it wasn't them. But her son and his cousin chased me up the stairs one day when she left the house. They ripped open my shirt and you know. And so after that happened, my mood pretty much changed. I had a really bad attitude. I was breaking curfew, and she ended up putting me out. So I was only with her for about 4 months. Um, once she put me out, they didn't have any foster homes for me. Teen, all the trauma. They ended up putting me in a temporary group home first, which was back in Fitz. So they separated me from my three younger siblings I was adopted with. Shortly after I got in Kids First, a couple months later, they found me a foster home. After a few months there, I begged her to get my three younger siblings. She ended up getting them. And then I ended up getting raped while I lived with her. Not by anyone she knew. This was a supposed boyfriend that invited me over. He took my virginity by rape at 14. And so I started acting out there too. And she ended up putting me out and keeping the three siblings and ended up readopting them. And unfortunately, this is jumping the boat, but they ended up being abused by her. So they were re-abused by their new adopter. Unfortunately, I didn't know she was going to do that. I didn't even know she was thinking about putting me out. She sent me to a respite home for like 2 weeks. I came back with my worker and my bags were out front, in trash bags. My belongings were out front, and I was told I was being taken back to the temporary first and being placed in a group home or a residential treatment facility. Um, I ended up in that short-term placement for about 2 months as they were trying to get me to the long-term home there, but they didn't have any openings. So they ended up shipping me back. to a residential treatment facility called, which is where that young boy Cornelius was killed a few years ago by being restrained. That is where I lived for
Oh,
10
wow.
months. Yeah. And it was a terrible place. So it did
Uh-huh.
not surprise me when I heard about Cornelius. I remember when I was restrained, a heavy set lady jumped on me as well and smushed me down. And I hadn't even attacked anyone yet. She should have just held me back. But it was bad. It was staff talking to the girls trying to sleep with this staff. I think he was sleeping with some of them. I was allowed to work in the kitchen, which is how I found out. And everybody ended up retaliating against me, and I ended up having my first anxiety attack while there. Um, it was just a really bad placement. So I begged my CASA worker and I begged my childhood lawyer to get me out of there for the 10 months I was there. They eventually got the judge to get me out of there because I had made all of my levels. So I was going to off ground school. So that was a plus to be able to get out of there and go to off ground school after doing the on ground school, because the education level for on ground schools at the residential treatment facilities is just not right for
Mhm.
those that actually were in school and did good in school. It was way below, my learning level. So
Mm.
being able to go to Loy Norris High School while I was at the group home was a huge blessing. But once they
Nice.
got me removed, that was a bigger one. But I did end up going back into the group home I was originally supposed to go to before I was shipped back to Kalamazoo. So I went back additional 6 months, got out, went to another foster home. She was a decent foster mom. It was just she had a really nasty attitude and she treated me different. And it was just so obvious that it hurt my feelings.
Mhm.
So I ended up asking to move with her sister. That was a terrible idea. When they say
Oh,
the grass is not greener on the other side, it is brown on the other side.
Mhm.
Her sister was mean. She was a bully. Her daughters were bullies. They treated me terribly. I was like a Cinderella. I was in college at the time because I was an early dual enrollment student. And I was in high school and I had a job because I took independent living classes and was saving up to move out on my own. And I
wow.
would come home from work and school and college, and it would be a sink full of dishes and a dirty kitchen, and they would make me clean the whole kitchen, and I was not even there. And one day I just got upset and said something like, "This is not fair," and her daughters jumped down my throat, yelling, cursing at me, trying to fight me. Then they chased me down the street, snatched my phone, and took my phone from me. And I ended up running away. That was my first time ever running away from a placement.
Wow.
And from there, I ended up going back into the group home temporarily. I think it was like 2 weeks. And then I ended up in my last foster home about a month and a half before I aged out. So when I aged out, I had all of my furniture. It was already bought. I had started a layaway the middle of my senior year while working at Art Van Furniture. It was paid off about 3 months before I was to graduate high school. So I ended up moving it into a storage. And once I turned 18, 2 weeks later, I had my own apartment fully furnished. And I received the stipend from the state for the first year to go towards my rent, and got a job and got my driver's license, bought a car, and I've been on my own ever since.
Wow.
Mhm.
So, so much trauma. I mean, from birth through foster care, through adoption, back into foster care, group homes. Now you're on your own. You've made amazing accomplishments. You're like, I know I'm worth something, and you've proven it. Where do you go from there?
Where do I go from here is to keep embracing myself, my uniqueness, and to keep feeding that life into my children, and to keep that generational trauma away from them. Um, to be honest with you, I just look forward to seeing my children make something of themselves and seeing them live life to the fullest and actually enjoy living it, because I struggle enjoying life. I'll be completely honest. It is very hard to be happy because happy is, foreign. And I know happiness is created within a person, like you're supposed to create your own happiness. But if you've never actually seen what that looks like, it's kind of hard to live it. So every day I work on being the best mom that I can possibly be, even though I'm still healing, because I am still healing.
Mhm.
And it's hard being a mom to 5 kids and trying to be joyous and be, a smiley, happy person so that your kids can remember you as being a happy, fun mom
Right.
when you actually never had a childhood.
Mhm.
So you really don't know how to embrace theirs or
Mhm.
how to encourage theirs or make sure they have the best. But I do the best I can. I watch the movies. I watch people on social media. I see the different things that they do and I mimic it. And I do the best that I can and I try to enjoy those moments with them to the best of my ability.
That is
So,
so amazing, and just getting real and being transparent. We so appreciate you doing that and sharing your
you're welcome.
story. Um, I know when I was listening to you and hearing your story and things that you were going through, I could just relate to your heart and your cry of, I'm worth something. I am valuable. I'm worth something, and I could just hear the torment coming out of, that I've not been respected, I've not been loved, but I'm worth something. And that God, beyond what happened to you, God created you. You are beautifully and wonderfully made, and He loves you beyond what you can fathom. And to hear that people calling themselves Christian and getting into foster care or adoption and taking that on and not reflecting that love of God, that love of Christ, you know, I am so sorry, because that is not the majority of people. And I hope
Yeah.
you know you are beautiful, you are loved, and you are wanted by God
Thank you.
Almighty.
Yes.
I agree. And you know what? That's one thing I do want to mention. Although I did have such a terrible experience as a child at the hands of someone that claimed to be lovers of God, I've never lost my love for God.
Good.
Um, we pray in my house every night. We pray with the kids. We sing the prayer. We rap the prayer. We dance. Every night, my family, we all sit around the table and eat dinner, and we say
Good.
prayer before everybody starts eating. We were very active in the church before we moved out here to Houston, Texas, back in Grand Rapids, our home church, Renaissance Church of God in Christ. We were faithful members pretty much for 5 years straight, going to the programs for the parents and children. And just, I've never lost my love for God. I pray.
Good.
I listen to gospel. I remember all the songs I heard when I was a kid. Kirk Franklin, Karen Shear, Fred Hammond, Hezekiah Walker, and that stuff stayed with me. So although that pain came from her, she also taught me about God. So for that, I will forever be grateful. And to be honest with you, I know that I'm one of God's children and I know that I'm protected by God because out of all of us kids that went through these things, I'm the one that kept that strong faith. And I've actually never experienced anything too traumatic as an adult. I'm the only one out of all of us that actually graduated high school. I'm the
Wow.
only one that's been in college. I am the only one. This is our fourth home that we've owned. Um, I I literally have flourished, and I know it's because I kept my faith in God. I've had hardships. My second oldest son's father was murdered the day before his first birthday. He's 15 now. I was in a domestic violent relationship right before I met my husband. He tried to kill me and then rape me after trying to kill me. And that's when I knew, like, I can't do this. I can't keep letting people hurt me. I'm tired of being hurt, you know. So I've had those type of things, but when it comes to me as a person and who I am and my success and my ability to overcome or keep moving regardless, like God has been there with me every step of the way because I've never turned bitter. Like
Good.
a lot of people that's been through the things that I've been through, they're bitter, they're
Yep.
angry, they're mad, they're full of hatred. And for some reason, I've never gotten to that level. My
Good.
my spirit just won't allow me to get there.
Good. So
Yes.
that's what you cling to is God and the and
Mhm.
knowing that Almighty creator of heaven and earth still loves you, accepts you, and then you're taking those patterns of things that happen to you and making sure you as an adult do not repeat them and that your children have a better experience.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what it's all about. We
It
learn we
is.
learn to forgive, we learn to take that on and for
Yeah.
trauma to happen at such a young age and to come out with such a level head and know, no, I can forgive, I can move on, I am a good person, I am a better person. uh, what
Yeah.
what a blessing.
And
It is.
I have, in closing, before wrapping up, I have a question to you. What are some pointers or suggestions you will give to people? Two-part question. One, what is some pointers or some suggestions you would give to people coming out of foster care that have experienced some of the things that you have, and just some suggestions to foster parents? Can you throw that out there for them?
Yeah, of
For
course. My suggestion to former foster kids, those that are in care and are exiting the system, is just to remember that once you're an adult, you dictate your life now. You're the narrator. You create your story. You have the power. You have the control. Your life is now in your hands. So, regardless of those that made life bad for you back then, just make sure you don't make your life bad for you now, in that present, in that future, since you are obligated to take care of yourself and to overcome those past situations. Envision the better. Even if you remember the past, use that past as stepping stones, as a foundation to get towards something better. Because one thing people have always asked me is, how are you doing so well despite all of that? I went through hell. I don't want to keep going through hell. So I created a better life so that I no longer had to live a life that I was forced to live, because that choice is now mine.
That's
And
right.
in terms of foster parents, the only thing I can say to foster parents is, even if you don't necessarily love them like your own, treat kids with respect. Respect. Because so many foster parents feel like they can talk to a child any type of way, they can make them feel like they're indifferent to their own children, isolate them, create that favoritism, role, and then they want that same respect from that child that they're getting from their biological children, but you're treating the biological children so much better. And in a home where you're going to take in someone else's child, it's about being respectful. It's not about treating anybody better than the other person. I don't want everything that your kid has, but don't make it obvious. Don't push it in my face. Don't do it on a constant basis, knowing that I'm seeing it and that it's hurting my feelings. And I think, to be honest, that's where that thin line is for those that foster, that know they're not going to really love that child like it's their own or treat that child like it's their own, is the fact that they make such a significant difference, and it ends up making it hard for former foster kids to accept anything from anybody as adults, because it always feels like it comes with conditions, or you feel like you don't deserve it, or like it's just being given to you just because people feel sorry for you. So if a foster parent is going to do foster care, they need to be prepared to make that kid feel loved, to make that kid feel accepted, embraced, comforted, and respected. Like that respect factor has so many different other factors that contribute to them feeling respected. And that's like my biggest thing about foster homes. Because it's, I don't even really know how to describe what I'm trying to say. Because they do it with good intent and they want to help a child, but sometimes it could also be damaging because the help just comes with, I'm putting a roof over your head, I'm making sure you eat, and I'm making sure you go to school. Be grateful. And that's not how an average kid grows up. So it's hard to just accept only that.
Yeah.
Wow. They need that nurturing, and it's hard when it's not coming from, you know, the blood that birthed you, and they need to be genuine, not fake.
Correct. Yes. Genuinity. That is such a big deal. Because, you know, a lot of foster parents say the attitude, the tone, the way they talk to me, and they don't even realize like that attitude is coming because I feel like I'm insignificant in your home and I'm
Right.
hurting. I'm
Right.
embarrassed.
Right.
That's where my attitude came from.
Yeah.
So it's deeper than what is displayed. And I believe, just to chime in, you know, anyone with a child have to be able to read between the lines and look beyond the surface, what's being displayed. You have to really ask yourself, what's going on? What's going on with this child? Why are they, you know, acting out? Because usually our
Correct.
behavior is in result of something that we went through, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whether we're sharing about it or not, it's the result of something we're going through. You can have a
Yes.
bad day and you come home and you're lashing out at someone, at everyone in the house. That's because something happened to you at work, you know? And it's the same. So
Correct.
don't just walk around displaying these you know, bad behavior, acting out for no reason. There's a reason, and it's
Mm-hmm.
deeper than what's being displayed. So I believe if people took the time and really got serious about whether it's your biological child or you know, a foster child, being serious about your role in what you, I feel like if you're going to foster or even be a parent, you were called to be a parent, you know, and you have to take
Correct.
it serious because everyone will be held accountable at the
Mm-hmm.
end, you
Yeah.
know. So that is just something. If I have something to put out there, look beyond the surface, go a little deeper, you
I completely agree. I appreciate you honing in on that because I was trying to figure out the words, and it's like I can't really describe it because I get it. You know, I've joined a lot of foster groups and stuff as an adult, and when I see the perspective from the foster parents, I get it. But my perspective from being a foster child, I get it. You know, like I'm just gonna give one example real quick because I just want y'all to kind of get what I'm trying to say as I'm trying to say it because I've spoken everything else out so well. But for instance, when I say that respect and that favoritism, the one foster mom I had before I went to her sister that I was talking about, my attitude with her was she would go to Detroit a lot. And when she'd come back, she'd have these purses and these, you know, name brand purses and all this stuff for her daughter, right? And she'd give it to her right in front of me, and she'd have nothing for me, not even a souvenir. And then my birthday came, my 17th birthday. My birthday is July 1st. She bought me a pair of pink sweatpants and a lemon cake. I hate lemon cake. I can't wear the sweatpants. It's summertime. But when it comes to your daughter, you're going to get her the appropriate clothes for the appropriate season. You're going to ask her what cake she wants, what she wants to do for her birthday. That wasn't asked of me. But yet, because you got me those things, I was expected to be grateful, happy, and everything, even though neither one of them was anything that I wanted. For Christmas, she bought me some big old pants I could not even fit. And then she tells me, well, your weight goes up and down. So you just need to be grateful because I don't know what size you wear. The
Wow.
pants end up going to her daughter because her daughter was thicker than me. And I didn't even get the pants because I could not fit them. And instead of her saying, I'm sorry, let's go figure out the right size for you and I'll exchange it, I was told to be grateful that I got anything at all. And then I was told by my foster sister at the time that she was talking on the phone to her friend, like, I don't know who she thinks she is. She ain't my daughter anyway. I don't owe her nothing. So she lucky if I get her anything. And
Wow.
those are the things that a lot of us foster kids deal with in foster care as people telling us that we need to shut up and be
Mhm.
grateful for the bare minimum while we sit there and watch them give everything to their biological kids right in front of our faces as if we're still orphans, and it's hurtful. And that's one of the reasons why I asked to be removed from her home, because I could tell that she didn't feel the same love for me. And although I wasn't her biological daughter, her actions made me feel like I just couldn't be there anymore. It was hurtful.
Yeah. And doing like you said, making sure that your children feel absolutely loved and they are known that they are handsome and beautiful and
Oh yeah,
you
I definitely never heard that ever as a kid. I've never, nobody ever told me I was beautiful, I was smart, any of that. So that is why I am big on telling my biological children that. And they really are. My first grader, he scored above first grade reading level. He's like on the third grade reading level. My teen sons, they're like A and B students. They were on honor roll from sixth to eighth grade straight, you
that is
know.
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah. So it is very vital to say those words, those affirmations, and
Yep.
feed that life into your children, because it really does dictate that confidence and that level of ability and knowing that they can be and do anything they want to as adults. And I feel like if I would have had that same love, life, and light put into me, I would be a lot further. Yes, I wrote a book. I've been on the Steve Harvey show. I was on the cover of the USA Today, but I feel like I am supposed to be at such a higher point in life right now. I feel like I should own my own business right now. And I've started 3 different businesses, did business plans, all of that, and I haven't went anywhere with them. And I feel like a lot of it is because I doubt my own ability and my own smarts to actually be successful and build a substantial business that flourishes. But I bet you if I had the mom that I am to my kids right now, oh, I'd be Oprah. I'd be Ayanna Van Zett, fix your life. I would be one of those people. So that
Well,
does dictate a
as
lot.
as I said, God made you for such a time as this. So where you
Right.
are and what you're doing with your 5 children is exactly where you need to be.
You're
And
right.
I don't mean to cut you off. We are getting close to the end of our interview here, but we thank you so much for sharing your story. And there's so much more. Would love to interview you again and get more into the adulthood and how you've transitioned and done everything. We've just gotten the intro of what an amazing woman you are and
Oh, thank
how you
you.
have flourished in such trauma at such a young age. I commend you for all
Yes.
that you've
Thank
done and
you.
what you've come out of. You are an amazing woman, and don't let anybody tell you any different.
I
Thank
really
you so
appreciate that.
much.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
so
for
much.
having me.